How do you do an open house that actually produces results, actually produces buyer and seller leads, which at the end of the day, let's all be honest, is exactly what we are after when we're doing open houses, of course, along with selling our client's property. What is going on, guys? My name is Chris Elliott with the Elliott Real Estate Team based out of Richmond, Virginia. In this video today, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to run through our team's internal open house checklist. I want to give you some tips, some tricks, some thoughts of things that you can do to get better results out of your open houses. I see so many agents that talk about open houses don't work, or hey, everybody coming in the open house already has an agent, or hey, I'm just like, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And the reality is, I think folks are just not doing open houses the correct way. The reality is, open houses have worked for decades for real estate professionals, generating buyer and seller leads. So let's just jump right into it. So first and foremost, I'm going to plan out my open house ideally a week in advance. If you know you have a listing coming up, or if you know there's a listing in your team coming up or in your office, I'm going to figure out what those opportunities are because I want to go ahead and plan my open house many a days in advance. So ideally, I plan it out a handful of days to a week in advance. And the reason being is what I want to do is I want to find a list. I want to pull a list of the closest 100 to 200 neighbors. Obviously, the more the better. You can get these from several different sources. There's Mojo, there's Vulcan Neighborhood Search, there's Cole Realty Resource. We use a system called Property Radar, but there's a lot of different resources out there where you can pull a geographic circle and pull the phone numbers for those homeowners. And I'm going to make calls to all the surrounding homeowners, and I'm going to let them know that the listing is coming up on the market. Ask them if they happen to know anybody that would be interested in moving into the area, or if anybody would be interested in picking over rental property in the area. And I'm going to invite them to the open house. Whilst I'm making those calls, I'm also going to poke and say, hey, have you guys had any thoughts about selling? Hey, if we happen to have more than one offer, would you guys consider selling? Hey, when was the last time you got a professional equity review, right? So I'm creating opportunities before I even do the open house because I'm engaging the neighbors in those dialogues, in those conversations. I'm also building those relationships so that, hey, I talk to you over the phone, we kind of interact over the phone, and then potentially you come out to the open house. And best believe that if they come out to the open house, there's a good chance that they're considering selling and they're just wanting to size up their neighbors. Maybe they're wanting to size up you as a real estate professional, but I want to engage the neighbors, right? All right, so that is the prep work I'm doing the week leading up to the open house. Let's assume for the sake of this video, you're doing an open house on a Saturday or Sunday. The Friday before, I'm going to confirm the open house is posted in the MLS. So, you want to make sure either you did that or somebody on your team or the other agent that you're hosting the open house for did that for you. The reality is most prospective buyers are going to find the house via the MLS or the IDX feed that pours into, Zillow, Homes.com, Trulia, Redfin, wherever they're searching for properties. So if your listing is not posted in multiple listing service, ideally a couple days prior, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities with prospective buyers and sellers because they simply don't see it online, right? From there, I'm going to print off 20 customer long, which is an option in the multiple listing service, copies of the listing, and that's going to be my flyer at the open house. Now, you can go super fancy and print off, color flyers, create your own. In my experience, it doesn't move the needle too much, at least for me. So I'm not going to go waste a whole bunch of time and energy and money printing off fancy flyers. I'm just going to print off the MLS. Quick, easy enough. Next, I'm going to print off an agent long copy of the listing, and I'm going to do a quick study of that listing. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be the agent hosting an open house that knows nothing about the house, right? That's going to make you look like an idiot really quick. So I want to study what's the heat, what's the cooling, what's the age of the systems, what can I memorize about the property, the age of construction, how many beds, how many baths, what are the selling features of the home. I want to study that listing or at least take 5 to 10 minutes to kind of learn about that listing, especially if it's not your own, so that if folks are asking basic questions, I'm able to give basic answers, right? But I'm also going to print off that cheat sheet, keep it in my back pocket. So that way, if somebody asks a question that I just can't remember, or, I don't know the answer, I can at least whip that out and answer it right there versus saying, oh, sorry, I don't know, right? Not a great answer when you're the agent hosting the open house, right? So I'm going to print that off. I'm also going to run a quick CMA search as if I was running a CMA on this property. And I'm going to scan the inventory and do kind of a quick comp search because I want to be seen as the local market expert when I'm doing that open house. That is what's going to win you opportunities with neighbors, with prospective sellers, is if you can talk knowledgeably about the inventory, right? So the reality is, like, the neighbors probably know more about the comps than you do, unless that's an area that you work pretty regularly. So I want to make a study. I want to know what the other active inventory is in the neighborhood. So if I have a prospective buyer that comes in, they say, hey, this house really isn't for us. I could say, hey, great. Have you seen 123 Maple Street? Or have you seen 456, Fake Street? And then I can potentially carry them over to that property and show that property after my open house, right? So I'm going to do a quick study of that. I'm going to learn about the elementary schools. I'm going to do a quick search about the restaurants. And this may sound like a lot, but once you kind of get it down, like, all of this takes about 15 minutes. And 15 minutes that guarantees, or not guarantees, but helps ensure your success at the open house, right? I'm also going to print off that comps list, keep it in my back pocket. So that way, if the neighbor wants to ask about, hey, what happened with 456 Maple, I can pull it out and at least say, oh yeah, that one actually sold for 20 grand over asking price, or whatever the case is, right? Um, I'm going to create, we're still in the prep work phase, right? As you can see, there's a little bit more prep that goes into open houses than maybe you're doing right now. I'm also going to create an open house sign-in page. Now, there's a lot of CRMs that have these digital open house kind of like landing pages that you can create. I know ours does. We have Sierra CRM. If you don't have that through your CRM, that's okay. I would create a very simple Google form where you can collect somebody's name, phone number, and email address. Name, phone number, email address. You want to be able to contact these people after the open house. Now, if you're somebody that says, oh, I don't like to make people sign in, nobody likes signing in, so therefore I don't want to be salesy, or whatever nonsense you're telling yourself. Yes, people don't like signing in, but the reality is, if you do not have a way to get in contact with people after the open house, you are hoping that you're going to be so charming, they're going to like you so much that you're going to convert somebody at an open house, which is what we ultimately want to do. But the reality is, like, at least in my experience, a large majority of opportunities are going to come from the follow-up after the open house. So if you're not collecting contact information, you're not going to have the ability to follow up with people after the open house. And if you're not able to convert them at the open house, you're going to be hoping and praying that they're going to contact you, which in my experience is not the best strategy, right? So we need to be able to collect people's information. If you don't have that through your CRM, correct a simple Google form, email yourself the link, so that way you can pull it up when you're at the open house. And that's that. So this is all the prep work we're doing, the Thursday, the Friday before the open house, right? The prep work is what makes the difference. Next is, I'm going to get out to the property 1 hour before the start of the open house. Yes, 1 hour before the start of the open house, we're going to show up early, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself set up in the open house. So I'm going to go in the house. I'm going to turn on the lights. I'm going to open the blinds. I'm going to make sure the temperature is right. If the kitchen needs to be cleaned up, I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to get the house looking right. Hopefully you've got some type of signage. We use Vistaprint retractable banners that says, please sign in, walk around, fall in love, make an offer. And then at the bottom it says, hey, if this is not the house for you, we can show you other homes. It just makes it look a little bit more official. Oh, I completely skipped. The Friday before, I'm going to go out and set up 15 to 20 directional signs around the open house. So that way I let all of the neighbors know that we're doing an open house. And I want the neighbors to know, because the most valuable lead that you can get is a seller lead. And the only way to collect those people that aren't actively like searching Zillow is to notify them with, in my experience, signage and the phone calls. So I'm going to put out 15 to 20 signs. I completely skipped over that, and I apologize. Back to being at the open house. So, we've put out our signs, we've gotten set up, we've set the house up, everything's good. That should take you all of like 15 minutes. I'm then going to do a social media post letting people know, hey, I'm over here at 123 Maple Street, hosting it today from 3 to 5. If you or someone would be interested in a property like this, send them by. And then what I like to do is I also like to tour people through the house. You can do this via a reel or stories. And I'm going to just kind of give them a quick tour of the house. It reminds your networks on social media that you are in the business, that you're doing the business, like you are a real estate salesperson, right? And you're just reminding your people you're doing that, and you're getting that you're getting that social proof. I am then going to door knock the closest 5 to 6 homes around the property. So I'm going to go knock on the doors. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Neighbor, good to meet you. My name is Chris Elliott with the Elliott Real Estate Team. Hey, just stopping by. I'm hosting your neighbor's house today from 1 to 3. Just wanted to give you an invite. Would you care to get a flyer? Oh, by the way, do you happen to know of anybody looking to move into the neighborhood? Oh, by the way, in case we get more than one offer on this property, if you guys had any thoughts of selling, right? So it's just another way to engage the neighbors. You're also showing the neighbors that you are actively pushing, promoting, selling their neighbor's property. So hopefully they're going to remember, hey, that was that really aggressive agent that made sure everyone in the neighborhood knew the property was for sale. They actively went and door knocked. It wasn't just the Joe Blow that, stuck a sign in the yard, didn't even do an open house, or, just did the open house and kicked their feet up and didn't do anything, right? We're out there actively pushing the property, but we're also collecting leads for ourselves, right? When we are up at the open house. All right, so we've door knocked, we've come back, we've got a drink of water. Now we've got people showing up. So the way we get people to sign in is I'm going to take that Google form or that web page or whatever you're using. I'm going to have it pulled up on my phone. When people walk in the door, I'm going to say, hey, thanks so much for coming out to my open house. Nice to meet you. My name's Chris. Hey, if you don't mind, I'm just going to get you signed in real quick, and then I'll let you go and you can tour the home. I'm not going to hand them the phone. I'm not going to have, them sign in on a sign-in page. So they write, like, they pick and choose what they fill in, and they write like non-legibly, if that's a word. I'm holding onto the phone and I'm asking them, hey, what's your first name? What's your last name? What's a good email for you? What's a good phone number for you, right? And what I've found is people will lie on paper. Like, they'll lie if they're filling it in. But it's kind of less people will lie face to face, right? So they're more likely to give you their information and give you their full information if you're standing in front of them, kind of like more or less blocking the house and asking for this information, right? Just like a check-in desk at a hotel or a gym or whatever, like, these folks need to sign in, right? So they're going to sign in. I'm going to collect their information. I'm going to let them go toward the house. Hey, let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to cut you loose. And that's that. If I can catch them as they're exiting the property, I'm going to say, hey, what was the feedback? Tell me about, what you think. Well, hey, this house wasn't for us. Cool, no problem. Hey, just tell me, what are you guys looking for? Do you have somebody that's helping you guys? Or hey, if you're a neighbor and you're just checking out, hey, would you be curious to know what your property could sell for in today's environment? So if I'm able to engage these folks as they're leaving the door, I'm going to push to try and book an appointment before they walk out the door, right? Ideally, our best case scenario in an open house is that we're booking appointments straight from the open house. But a lot of times, depending on how busy the open house is, you got people slipping out the back door, they're like exiting as you're talking to somebody else. So if I can catch them and try to engage them, I will. But if not, worst case scenario, I've got their contact information, and we've gotten that. Now, here's arguably the most important part of the open house. It is the follow-up afterwards. If you are not following up with these leads, if you're not engaging these leads afterwards, you're missing a huge opportunity, right? So ideally for me, I'm putting these folks in my CRM. I'm setting them up on an email alert, like a general property search, or maybe a property search for properties like the one that I was hosting at the open house. If I know that they're neighbors, I'm setting them up on a market update for their neighborhood, right? So that way they're getting some sort of emails from me. And then I'm calling them every other day, until I'm able to get engaged with them or until they tell me to stop calling them or, hey, I'm already signed with another agent. They tell me I'm already working with another agent. To me, I don't know. That may or may not mean that they're actually engaged, formally with another real estate professional. So I'm going to keep pushing until they say, hey, I've got a signed agreement with somebody else, right? And keep in mind, studies have shown that the conversion of leads generally happens after the 7th or 8th reach out. So if you're just calling people once or twice and they're not picking up and then you're throwing away the lead, you're throwing away good opportunities. Realize you've got to make 7 to 8 reach outs before you're likely to convert. So until you've gotten like 10 reach outs, you really haven't tried adequately to convert those leads to appointments. So those were my tips on how to run an effective open house. Hopefully you got something that you're able to implement at your next open house. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, fears, throw them in the comments, shoot me a DM. We'll see you next week.